All right, let's get started while everyone else is still coming in. So welcome. Double your weekend sales, the playbook for packed houses and profitable shoulders. Here's what I'll tell you. I actually think that I'm going to under promise and over deliver. I'm going to give you the mindset, the skill set, and the tool set that you need to do exactly that. We're going to cover a ton of ground today. So if you don't mind, I'm going to dig right in. If it feels like I'm talking fast or it feels like we're moving fast, a couple of things. Number one, there is going to be a recording of this, which ultimately you will get access to. And then number two, you have access to me as well as all of the experts that are referenced throughout this presentation whenever you want. So let's get started. So I want to start by explaining the ground rules here. This is a conversation, not a presentation. This is a workshop, not a webinar. So we're actually going to do work in real time together. And what is most useful for me is if you talk to me. And so what I want you to do is everybody is muted, but I want you to use the chat. If I ask a question, I want you to answer the question. I want your cameras on. I want the chat live, and I want you to participate. And not because it makes it better for me, even though candidly, it is better for me to not just sit here screaming into the abyss, but because it is better for you, because active learning is better than passive learning. Let's talk about today's objectives. So we're going to work to drive the highest margin traffic on peak, meeting 100% of the existing demand for your business. And once we've done that, we are then going to work to scale demand. Before we get in all of that, I think a reasonable question is, why should you listen to me? I think what makes me unique in this space is that I didn't work for great restaurant owners. I became one over decades of trial and error. I owned and operated blockbuster concepts in every tier of dining in one of the most competitive markets in the world. 504 was a dive bar that I owned for more than a decade. Prim and Proper was a Michelin-rated fine dining concept. And then out of that, we spun out South City Fried Chicken, which was my fast casual concept. But having said that, I've also built out several industry solutions based on my own needs, which I think probably speak to your needs. I built a virtual reservationist company, which not only answered the phones for me and booked reservations for my restaurants, but also booked reservations nationally for the busiest restaurants there are. I also co-founded and host Full Comp, which is an industry podcast where I've interviewed 500 plus at this point of the most prolific, innovative restaurant owners and operators and industry thought leaders over the last 5 years. And out of my firsthand experience and everything that I learned from asking amazing people great questions on the show, I created the restaurant scaling system, which is a done with you model to help you scale profitability. And so what we are going to be doing today and talking about today, those tenets are a core part of the program that you get for free because you work with Yelp for Restaurants. But before we get into that, let's talk about you. So where you sit today, more than likely, is that you've spent most of your time trying to scale off-peak business, trying to get busier on Mondays and Tuesdays. And we do this by trying to alter consumer behavior, which ultimately leads us to capitalize at poor margin with high overhead. And where I want us to land is that we scale business on peak, influencing consumer behavior and capitalizing at high margin with low overhead. And this is the first big idea I want to share with you, is that momentum is a powerful thing. And if you can break, you can either spend all of your time fixing what is broken, and that will hold you back. I think most of us feel compelled to do this, and we function as firefighters in our business. As an owner and operator, I had very little interest in this. And I would ask you, like, what happens to your business when you turn all of your attention towards amplifying what is working in your business instead of trying to fix what's broken? And I think what you'll see through this workshop is magic happens. And there's a key idea I want you to start with, which is that your restaurant is under monetized on peak. What I found through Flow in booking reservations for the busiest restaurants in the country is they were all under monetized when it mattered most. And it was because everybody was focused on trying to get an extra $5,000 out of Tuesdays, as opposed to trying to make an extra 15 grand on the weekends. And so we're going to use the strategies that we built out in Flow to optimize your restaurant as well. And with Flow, just as a testament to it working, I guaranteed every client that we brought on that within the first 2 weeks, I would increase their top line sales by 15%. And we got it every single time. And the reason we did was because I figured one big thing out. The biggest hurdle for most of us is realizing what business we're in. And so I would ask you, and I'd love for you to respond in the chat, what industry do you think most closely aligns with ours? I'll wait. Hospitality-ish, yes. We can agree that we're in there. Where else? The hotel industry. Yes, somewhat close. The automotive industry. Okay, that's interesting. Entertainment, little closer. Wholesaling, items. Keep going. Retail. Movies. Movies is the closest yet. Movie theaters is very close. Pleasing people. That's less of an industry. Here's what I'll tell you guys. The industry that most closely aligns with ours is the airline industry. What does Delta sell? Right? Do they sell travel? No, they sell seats on a plane. And so their job that they are maniacally focused on is to monetize those seats as efficiently and effectively as possible. And so if we understand that we are actually in the inventory business, and I'm not talking about food and beverage, I'm talking about tables and chairs, then I would ask you, how much more money would your restaurant make with one more bar stool or one more table or 4 more chairs over the course of a year? And I would argue you would be mind blown. This is a client of mine that's still in Fort Collins, Colorado. They increased seating by 8% and brought in an additional $168,000 over the trailing 12 months off that inventory alone. Now, what is that inventory doing on a Monday? It's sitting vacant. They don't need it. But on peak, when it matters most, when they're turning away business due to long wait times, when they're backed up, that inventory is a savior. And it speaks to the larger idea here, which is, again, let's monetize on peak at margin. And once we fixed our inventory issues and you've bought the furniture and you've squeezed in as much as you can, we can then turn our attention to maximizing capacity. What am I talking about here? I'm talking about how efficiently we're using that seating inventory that we have. The big question here is like, how can we serve more people faster in a way that doesn't necessarily feel rushed? And so there are 3 horsemen here. And so the first one is, especially in full service, find the bottlenecks, decrease turn times, like create a steps of service that is so efficient that they get everything that they need and nothing that they don't. Using our host to communicate expectations, because I would argue, and you could tell me if I'm wrong in the chat, but we're running a very different business on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday than we are on Monday and Tuesday. And I understand that in your businesses today, you believe that people want to just sit in your restaurant for 3 hours. But I would argue if they are, and I know they are, it's because they don't know when to leave. They don't know when the meal is done. And we orchestrate all of this around that. We look at our hours and days of operation, and we are orchestrating a service very much like a theme park, very much like a movie, where people have a clear understanding of the beginning, the middle, and the end of the experience. And we're optimizing for efficiency. I could care less about the 3-hour 2-top on Mondays, but on Saturdays, we just can't deal with it. The second horseman are flow controls. For those of you that are in full service, that are taking reservations, software is key here. One of the tricks with Flow that we use that you can do in your own business is you go into the back end of the software and you look at your table combinations and your wait list setting and your pacing and your timing policy, and you just crank it. And you crank it because you really don't know how busy you can be until you've broken the wheel. So I would advocate that all of you go into the back end of your software and make yourself a little nervous, right? Roll it back from a two-top taking 90 minutes to 75 minutes. See if you can get it done. See how efficiently it works. There's this idea in professional sports, practice how you play. And so what I would argue is that if we begin through software to speed up the pace of service, your bartenders and servers will adjust accordingly. And I don't say that because I suspect it to be true. I say it because I've seen it firsthand and secondhand through literally hundreds of clients. The third horseman is strategic overbooking. So one of the things that Delta does, and you know they do, and you still use them as an airline, is they strategically overbook. One of the problems with our industry is that the expectations around service have changed. The dynamic between us and our patrons have changed. And so what I found was, and I'm sure you do too, is that reservations fall off. They fall off the day of, the night of, the hour of. And so what we started doing was we started taking a protectionist perspective. We would work to sell the shoulders. We would strategically overbook. And on those nights, and I know you're thinking it now, did it ever backfire? Well, for sure it did. But like in those moments, we leveraged radical honesty and our team had tools to take care of it. If you had taken the time and the effort to book a reservation with me, and when you got there, you were on a 45-minute wait, we had cold quick service appetizers ready for you. We'd give you as many glasses of bubbles as you needed while you waited to be seated. We had an area where you could be comfortable while you waited, because I knew that the biggest hurdle in our industry is just getting them through the door. Because once they're through the door, I can fix anything. I own the restaurant and I have all the things that people want. I have places to sit. I have food. I have booze. So we strategically overbook the restaurant and we optimize flow controls and we remove the bottlenecks from service to guarantee that they come in. And then we make sure that we have the tools to take care of them once they're there. Does that resonate with you? Does that make sense? What does it look like in practical application? What it looks like is this. If this guy can do it, who is far less gray than I am today, you can too. The truth is you don't know how busy you are until you push the envelope. We thought we were busy at $36,000 weekends, but we grew to $58,000 weekends through strategic overbooking and aggressive turn policy. And we did this overnight. Nicholas asks, could you elaborate on other types of control methods for the wait times in-house? I can, but I think something that I'll touch on in addition to that is, let's talk about quick service. A lot of quick service people on this call? I think so. So you look at quick service and you say, well, what's the dream? The dream is a line that we want a line out the door every single day. But I don't know about you, but like I've been in this industry long enough, like I'm not going to wait in a line. And so when I see a line, I'm panicked. When I see a line, I think, how many other people see the line and say, nah, not for me. I'm not going to do that. So one of the things that we need to do is we need to function very similar to Chick-fil-A or In-N-Out, where we are optimizing the customer service experience to eliminate lines. I've got a client in Las Vegas, Nevada, the Juice Standard. And what we did was they do coffees, like custom coffees, juices, smoothies, all of that. But the juice isn't squeezed when the order is made. It's just a bottle of juice. So when people had juice-only orders, there was a separate line for them so that we could move them through the line much faster. And in doing so, we were actually able to scale top-line sales because, as it turns out, and this is shocking, I was right. And there were people that were simply not willing to wait in line to get a bottle of juice. So once we removed that bottleneck, magic happened. In the fast, casual, and quick service tiers of dining, like they are in, this was a big shock to me when I got into it. With South City Fried Chicken, we served literally the best fried chicken sandwich in the world, and people hated me for it. And the reason they did was it took 16 minutes to make. And the best fried chicken sandwich served in 16 minutes in a quick service concept tastes terrible. because it took them 30 minutes to get there. It's going to take them 20 minutes to get back, and it took them 16 minutes to make the sandwich. They don't even have time to eat it. They're already 6 minutes over the budgeted time that they had. And so we need to make sure that we're meeting the expectation based on tier of dining. So don't think just because you are in a lighter tier that there aren't severe bottlenecks that are hampering your ability to sell. Can we talk about me for a minute? Let's go back to me. So you look at this case study and you say, man, this guy is magic. And I would ask you, is this story of my magical turnaround in my business, is it a happy story or a sad story? Let me know in the chat. Sad. Yes. Spot on, Doreen. Very sad story, Nicholas. And why? Because there's this idea of an ignorance tax. And I did the math for you so that you can vomit in your own mouth. I paid $1,144,000 a year in ignorance tax, completely unaware for almost half a decade that I was leaving all that money on the table. It's a devastating story. So I'm so glad that you're here in an industry where everything is urgent and everything that's important, because what I can tell you is this: the purpose of this session today and the purpose of you being here is to do nothing other than compress time. You would figure all of this out on your own, but if we figure it out faster, you will pay less in ignorance tax. And if we assume that through our efforts today, we have maximized your inventory and your capacity, then I want to transition our thought to our funnel, our marketing funnel. So if we are as efficient as possible, then maybe now it's time to start inviting more people in. And so the question that should keep you up at night, and the question that kept me up at night, is this: like, are we capturing 100% of the demand for our restaurant? Are there people that find me, are interested in going to my restaurant, and then say, nah, not worth it? So let's talk about the biggest barriers to get there. But I want to start with how they're finding you. So I would argue that most of the people on this call, and a lot of you supplied your website, so I did do research. It looks like you're 80-10, 90-10, that you're spending most of your attention on social media. And here's the paradigm shift as it relates to social media. I think you're getting it wrong. I think that social media is an inherently low intent platform. I think that when you turn to your spouse and say, let's go out for dinner tonight, I don't think you open up Instagram to figure out where to go. I don't think you're on Facebook, you see a patio from a local restaurant, and you drop everything you're doing to go to that restaurant. So then what's the purpose of social media? The true purpose of social media is to get their attention and then to send them to areas of higher intent where they are more likely to make a decision. But before we get into those areas, which I think is the most useful part of this, I want to give you 2 quick tips. Number one, like, we need to be telling better stories on social media. To not belabor the point with the story, because I'm trying to get through a ton of stuff today. Soap operas got it right. The genesis of soap operas was that Procter & Gamble was trying to sell soap to housewives. And what they figured out was, over the course of a 44-minute episode, everybody would fall out midway through the episode, which was a mistake because they needed them to watch the whole show so they would watch all the commercials. And what they figured out was this: in a traditional storyline, there is the supposition into a climax, into a resolution, but everybody stopped watching after the climax. So the way that they fix soap operas, and you see it today in any modern drama, is they are not telling one story. They are telling 3 stories simultaneously. And in doing so, what ends up happening is, in any given story, there are 3 climaxes that push and pull you through the story. And so I would ask you, how many stories are you telling on social media? And I would advocate that you come up with 3 strategies. One, talking about you and your purpose and why this restaurant needed to exist. Number 2, talking about product and the effort that goes into creating an effortless experience. And then number 3, people, highlighting the people that work with you and for you and patronize your place. Becoming an advocate for them will ingratiate you with your audience. And the other thing is this: I think that Everybody's using social media to broadcast. And the missing opportunity that we utilize with our clients is this. We direct message. We send out 35 direct messages a day. What you figure out pretty quick once you really delve deep into marketing is sales is about a solid offer and making that offer as often as is humanly possible. So my clients reach out to the people that like their post and comment on their post and tag them on posts. And they invite them back in that weekend. And they give them a great reason to come in that's not built around discounting. And in doing so, the conversion rate on that is about 25% on average, because that's a warm audience. Those aren't strangers. Not only do they know you and like you, but they follow you on social media. And so you do that 35 times a day, and then you do the big math. And you're like, well, if I do it 35 times a day over the course of a month, I'm doing it 1,000 times. I'm making 1,000 offers. And at a 25% conversion rate, that means I'm getting 250 new patrons. But I'm not, right? Like I'm not getting an extra 250 covers because those people aren't going to come by themselves. They're obviously going to bring someone else. So now I'm looking at what? 500 covers minimum with no associated expense. So let's get really good at using social media in a way that you can directly tie it to sales. And once we've done that, we now need to figure out where to send them. And it's the pages of highest intent. Where do people decide? Do you think anyone sitting on the toilet, scrolling through Google listings and Yelp listings, looking at restaurant websites? No, the only people that do that are other restaurateurs. What these people are doing is they're looking to make a buying decision. And so your website, your Yelp listing, your Google listing, your TripAdvisor listing, these are pages of high intent. These are people looking to make a buying decision now, today. And I would ask you, when you go to your website, when you go to your Yelp listing, does it answer every question they could possibly have in order to make that buying decision and choose you? There's this really compelling statistic from the founder of owner.com, who they did this deep dive research and they found out that restaurant websites converted at a 10% rate. 1 out of every 10 people to go to your restaurant's website, and this is probably true of sales pages like Yelp and Google and TripAdvisor, 1 out of every 10 patronize your restaurant. And the other 9 say, yeah. So like, I know we're all looking for new customers and we're all looking for more customer frequency, but I would ask you, like, what happens to your business if you're able to go from a conversion rate of 10% to 20%, to 30%, to 40%? I would think with reasonable effort, we could easily get up to 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10. And so how do we do that? I want you to look at your Yelp profile and I want you to say, what does the photography look like? We agree that like people eat with their eyes, right? But then I go to your Yelp listing and all of the photos were taken by like an octogenarian of half-eaten food in low light. Is that really how you want your restaurant represented? Like, what about the storytelling? Like, are you calling out like the effort that goes into this effortless process? Are you calling out your ideal patron, right? If you are looking for a world-class dining experience focused around Southern classics reimagined, we would love for you to make a reservation this weekend. The other problem that I see with all of these pages is we have the wrong call to action. So instead of saying you've never been here before, you should come to our most our most popular service on the most popular day of the week, we're saying come in on Tuesday for reverse happy hour. When what we should be saying is come in this weekend for dinner. How am I doing here, guys? Am I delivering? Let me know in the chat while I hydrate. Sweet, let's keep it going. So you see what we're doing here, right? So you're telling better stories on social media that are ultimately driving people to pages of higher intent, where through copywriting, through photography, through a singular call to action, we are getting them in the position to make that buying decision. Now, let's assume, and it says, what if I'm busy on Friday and Saturday, but I want more business Monday through Wednesday? And I would argue, and I've been doing this a long time, there's more money to be made on Fridays and Saturdays. We'll talk about off-peak in a little bit, But I would argue that there's probably way more money to be made on Fridays and Saturdays. Surprising to me too. So let's assume again that we've done all of the things, right? So now, like, they go to the page, they've decided to make a buying decision, they're choosing us, and we feel really good about it. I would ask you, like, what are the hurdles to them actually coming in? And the statistics around reservations today are sobering. Like, I saw it in my own business. You know, in like 2018, 2019, let's say the beginning of 2019, in my fine dining restaurant, we would be fully committed for a Friday on the previous Monday. But by the time I sold the restaurant at the top of the pandemic, we weren't fully committed for a Friday until, geez, like Friday afternoon, Friday evening. One of the big advantages of technology is that it gives people more options. And so the newer generation that we're now saddled with serving, they don't want to make a decision way far in advance because they have the ability to make a decision last minute. So I would ask you, for those that don't want to make reservations, have we set up a way to remove any bottlenecks or any questions they have as it relates to like the expectation of services? I saw Yelp data because, as you know, I work very closely with the company. And I think it was from last year, the year before last. And the data showed that there were more seats booked via waitlist than for traditional reservations. Get this, for Valentine's Day. For Valentine's Day, people are making not only last minute reservations, but they're actually using waitlist. And why are they doing it? They're doing it because they know that it works. So I would ask you, when people go to your profile, like, is there some expectation of service? And to really hammer that home, I'm going to give you a false equivalent. I believe that the genius of Uber is the map, not the car. It is the expectation of service that makes Uber better than a taxi. You know when they're coming, you know how long it's going to take, and as a result, you choose Uber, right? So if somebody wants to come to your restaurant and they don't have a reservation, like, how many people are really willing to risk it? Especially if it's the weekend, especially if your restaurant does really well. And so I just want to make sure for my own concepts that there are no hurdles and we're able to establish that expectation out the gate, because I don't want there to be any barriers between me and getting to my target customer. And there's all this other friction as well. I would advocate that, like, anyone that goes to any of your pages, whether it's your social media pages or your website, like, they should be able to book seamlessly with booking links from anywhere that you exist. I would drop those booking links everywhere. They should be able to choose their seating. They should be able to choose where they sit, but not when they sit. That way we can control the flows. And that we're able to use the technology available to help them check in effortlessly when they arrive. How many restaurants have you been to? And maybe it's yours too, where like the hostess is looking down at a tablet, not actually hosting the guests that have arrived at your restaurant. Like, technology today can fix all of that for you, and it eliminates the friction in the experience, which makes it better for everybody. Does that resonate? Please let me know in the chat. And so before we continue, I want to talk about like the next biggest opportunity, which is your website and how to optimize it. And I promised you guys that I would audit your websites, and audit them I will. But before that, I want to tell you a story which informs my worldview as it relates to your landing pages, your websites, and all of that. There was this study that was done on people with traumatic brain injury, and it was a very specific type of traumatic brain injury. The type of traumatic brain injury that people had was that they were normal in all ways but one. They couldn't feel. Like, they didn't feel happy or sad or pensive or excited. These people were normal in all ways, but they were incapable of feeling emotion. And what was fascinating was this: they could live completely normal lives with the exception of they couldn't make a decision. These people could sit in front of you and weigh out the pros and the cons of any conceivable decision. They were in no way mentally handicapped from a logical perspective, but they could not make a decision. And what the study found out was that in order to decide, you have to feel. that there is a split-second emotion that you feel that triggers the decision. And so I would ask you, when people go to your website, what do they feel? What are you selling? Is it a commodity or is it an experience? Are you selling effort or are you selling a product? I would love to show you like what good, bad, and ugly looks like. Let me know in the chat if you want to do a couple of website audits to see what it all looks like. And let me say this for the people that I'm about to talk to and about, they submitted their websites. So like you had this coming. So let's go ahead and start. I'm going to share a screen and then you're going to let me know in the chat if you can see my screen. Can everybody see my screen? Let me know in the chat. Sweet. All right, let's go. So this is Harlemite Peruvian cuisine. This is a conversation again. So like, I want to know, like, what do you see? When you go to this website, what do you see? How do you feel? The first thing that I see is like the price is negotiable. Like we have prices on the website, but like you don't really have to pay that. And then you get the opportunity to book a table. And then there's a little about us section. I see food and I see great plating. I see the menu and I see like beautiful images. But again, and we've talked about this a lot today. We don't sell food and beverage. We sell eating and drinking, right? So where is the experience? Like they're not going to get this to go. The call to action is to book a table. So like, why would I go in here if I have no idea what it's going to be like when I go in there? Shall we continue? So this is Zim's, and they sell food, music, and fun. This is it. This is the entirety of the landing page. So one of the things I did in going through like the websites that I'm going to share is I looked at all of them on mobile. And so the issue here is that no one is ever going to click on anything on your website because you don't either, right? You just go to the homepage, and if you get the information you want, you read it. And if you don't, you just go to the next website. These are not like long, thoughtful decisions that we make. Like you look at a glance and you say like, is this where I want to go? And for me, I don't know whether I'm eating lunch here or dinner here. I see eggs. So is it a breakfast place? Is it beer and eggs? Is that what I'm doing here? I have no idea. When is there music? How would you define fun? I'm 45 years old, and I would argue that I define fun at 45, married with a 6-year-old daughter, differently today than I did 10 or 15 years ago. And so that being the case, there's not enough information here to make a buying decision. Let's look at Szechuan impression. Premium Los Angeles-based Szechuan cuisine. Little words here, a bunch of food. What do you see here? Let me know in the chat. You see story. What else do you see? You see a child actually eating food. Do you know what I see? Words. I see words. And you know what? There's only one rule in marketing. People don't read. They don't read. Those are too many words. You're on mobile. How many of you, show of hands, would read all of that when deciding whether to go here or not? And let me tell you, like, this is a wildly popular restaurant or wildly successful restaurant. They've got multiple locations in Southern California. But like, you're not going to read that. I'm not going to read that. I'm not a child like that. And what I want to see is I want to see people that look like me when I'm going to a place. I want to make sure that I'm not catering to the child that's not going to patronize my restaurant, but the parents that will. And so here, this is a better iteration, but again, too many words. So if that was good, this is better. So look, like the imagery is really nice. You see food from Buenos Aires to the world, the opportunity to make a reservation at multiple locations, menu, atmosphere, service, awards, news, contact, maps and stuff. Let me know. Let's rank it on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being a perfect website. How does this rank? Nicholas says it's a 10. Vaughn says it's an 8. Robert's hard to please. He says it's a 7. Anyone else? 7. 8. So the problem is, just like we were talking about, like being under monetized on the weekend, like you don't know what you don't know, right? And so I would argue that you don't really know a 10 unless you've seen a 10. Would you like to see a 10? Meet Puesto. What do you see when this website opens up? In the chat, tell me what you see. Close, Doreen. You see effort. You see cooks cooking, right? You see servers serving. You see dishes being finished. You see bartenders bartending. And they're doing all of this for you. Look at this place. Let me ask you something in the chat. Do you feel something? Does this make you feel in a way that none of the other examples we provided do? That's it, man. That's the name of the game. This website converts at an unbelievably high rate. And I'm going to take this opportunity to run you through the whole thing. So what's next? Get your taco fix. Our family story begins with tacos. As first-generation Mexican Americans, we've been immersed in authentic Mexican cooking since childhood. Let me ask all of you, and let's look at like the websites we just went through. Like this, all of this is that. It's the same thing. The hardest thing in the world to do is to say a lot with as few words as possible. What do you get from this? You get that it's small, it's family owned and operated, even though they have multiple locations. And you get that there's an authenticity to this that says, vote for me, go for me, with a singular call to action. Book a reservation. What do they want you to do? They want you to sign up for their mailing list? Do they want you to come in for a happy hour this week? No, they want you to book a reservation, maniacally focused on what they want. Let's continue. What is this place known for? If you were going to go there today, what would you order? If you were to describe this place to someone after patronizing it, what would you say? This is brilliance. And the reason that it works is because they are giving their viewers the language that they will use to describe them to other people. A little what's new, which shows that they're always iterating for those that want to dig deeper. And again, a singular call to action with another value proposition, which is their craft cocktail program. Socialize with us, and then check this out at the bottom. This is all you need. For those of you that are old like me, do you remember when websites used to have like a press page? Like, who reads that? Like, nobody reads that. It is more effective to simply have the logos of the publications at the bottom of your website as social proof than it is to actually have the articles themselves, which no one's going to read because, as we learned 7 minutes ago, people don't read. Now, let me ask you all, do we have some work to do on our websites? Yes, yes, yes. Of course you do, right? Because you don't know a 10 until you've seen a 10. And that's the whole point of this. I can't change your businesses in an hour, guys. The goal is to change your mind. And if I change your mind, we can change your life. So now let's assume you've done it all, right? Like we're optimizing inventory, maximizing capacity. You're telling great stories on social media that are driving them to pages of higher intent. They converted at an incredibly high level. Your website is amazing. Like we are on fire now. And I would ask you, where are we going to send these people? What are we going to tell them to do? And most of us are sending people in the wrong direction. And that is what panics me most. Where are you going to drive that traffic? So back to a point that's come up in the chat no less than 100 times. I don't care about off-peak. We need to forget about Tuesdays. And let me tell you why Tuesdays are the devil. So when you try and get someone in on a Tuesday, you're not asking them to come to your restaurant. You're asking them to get off the couch and to put on pants and to get in their car and drive to your restaurant. Most importantly, when they don't want to. And so what I don't want to do is focus off peak, trying to convince people to do things they don't want to do. I want to focus on peak, influencing behavior, getting them to do something that they already want to do, but they do it with me. And so let's talk about how to double sales on the weekends. Whoa, you know what? One more point I want to bring up. What happens if I do double your sales on a Tuesday? What happens? You just keep all that money? No, I just exploded your restaurant. If you bring in an extra $5,000 on a Tuesday, I just broke your business model. You're going to have to hire new staff. You're going to have to bring in additional labor. Your prep schedule is going to change. But if I bring in an extra $5,000 on Friday or Saturday, you already staffed up. You're already prepped out to the nth degree. So much more of that money is going to drift to your bottom line, which, be careful what you wish for. So I would argue that until we have maximized our capacity on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, we forget about Tuesdays. And so if we want to maximize on peak, I think it starts with figuring out who our best patrons are and what motivates them to come in. We need to stop guessing about what our customers want, and we need to get really close to the customers that we have. And so I would ask you in the chat, how well do you know your best weekend customers? Are they male or female? Are they coming from home? Or are they coming from work? Are they married or are they single? Do they have kids? Do they have no kids? How old are they? Because when you look at your marketing strategy, you're going to talk to a 50-year-old woman that is married with children differently than you're going to talk to a 24-year-old man who's there after work pounding beers with his buddies. And so you've got to figure out who your person is so that ultimately we can market directly to them. We don't talk to everyone. We only talk to our best people. And then what we do is we create an experience that gives us the ability to sell against ourselves. When I got into fine dining, which was a bear until we figured it out, what I struggled with frequency. I was if you're paying $125 a person to come in for dinner, what do I say? Am I hey, Vaughn, why don't you come back for dinner tomorrow night or next week? I mean, I can tell you that from my experience in fine dining, only two types of people eat there: the type that can afford to do it every day and the type that can afford to do it once every 6 months, and very little in between. And so if I was going to get both of those people back, I needed to give them an alternative experience. I needed to create something within my existing scope that lived on the shoulders, that gave them a great reason to come back to enjoy my food in a different experience. And so we created these alternatives to core offering. Ideas are around flights and bites, things like that. This was one of the most successful campaigns we ever ran. It's Dogville. It's a multi-unit concept. It's a burger and beer joint in Oslo, Norway. We scaled on-peak volume by 36% using an early bird less for less campaign. What I mean by that is we took the most popular menu items, and on the shoulders, when nobody was in there, we shrank the size of the items and shrank the price. So it was an identical margin. It was a unique experience. There were pairings involved that instead of doing burgers and beers, it was sliders, right? Paired with individual testers of beer with beer flights. And it was a unique experience. And so it wasn't that people were coming to us for dinner when they had already been in for dinner. They would come in, they would enjoy flights and bites, and then they would go to their dinner. And so we can sell against ourselves, again, influencing people to do what they're already going to do because they're already out. We've covered a lot of ground, have we not? My God. Here's what I'll tell you. In building all of these businesses on my own and then coaching hundreds of people through these processes, the biggest hurdle in our industry isn't knowledge, right? I would say that most of the things that we talked about today, whether you could articulate or not, you probably knew on an intuitive level. So if the hurdle isn't knowledge, what is it? It's overwhelm. And I think we all suffer from that in an industry where everything is urgent and everything is important. And so if you're going to optimize this, I'm going to give you a tool that I use with my own coaching clients. It's called the next right thing. So when you walk away from this, I'm going to share with you the next right thing, but I'm also going to provide a sprinkle of context before we get there. It must have been like 4 years ago. It was longer than that. Jesus, it had to be 6 years ago. It was my wife and I's wedding anniversary. We went to Katana on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles for our anniversary. And the steps of service that they went through were perfection. And I'll tell you what it looked like. We walk up, they greet us, they say happy anniversary. They promptly bring us to our table. We sat at our table. The server walked up. She asked us if we wanted flat or sparkling. We chose tap because we are of the people. They bring us the tap water and then they take our cocktail order, but we weren't drinking. And so then they say, well, the chef would prefer that we take your whole order all at once. Don't worry, we'll pace it out to perfection. So then they took our whole food order and we gave it to them and they took the menus and then they brought out the food and they paced it perfectly. At the conclusion of that, they cleared the table. They brought us dessert menus and they said, are you interested in dessert this evening? We were going to have dessert somewhere else. So we opted out of dessert and they brought the bill. I paid the bill. They took it back. And then eventually they came back and took the check presenter. Our water glasses were empty. They offered us more water. When we passed on water, they took the water glasses. So here I am with my wife on our anniversary in this beautiful restaurant, full as a tick, excellent service. And there's nothing on the table but a candle. So what did we do? We got up. And I would ask you, let me know in the chat, how long do you think the turn time was on my table? How long do you think we were there? "45 minutes, 60 minutes, 1 hour, 75 minutes, 1 hour max." Guys, we were in there 45 minutes. And I would ask you, had it taken an extra 15 minutes to walk us through all of that, would that have made for a better experience? If we had gotten our food slower, if they had approached the table less frequently, would it have made it better? No. I think we spend all of our time looking to our patrons instead of looking internally and saying, what do I value as a patron? That was a perfect dining experience, and it didn't take a minute longer than it needed to. And so let's bring it back to you. Let's talk about what we've accomplished today. Before this, I would argue that your customer controlled the pace of service and that you spent most of your time fixing what was broken in your business, leaving a ton of money on the table, especially on peak, and that we spend most of our time hoping to have a great weekend. And after this, we control the pace of service. We're doubling down on what's working, forgetting what's broken, maximizing the profitability of every stick of furniture in our restaurant. And we're planning for a great weekend instead of hoping for it. Do you see what we're doing here? We're consolidating your revenue. We are compressing the demand. When I opened 504, that bar in Hollywood, when we initially opened, we did like $1.4 million the first year. We were open from 11 a.m. until 3 a.m., 7 days a week. When I sold that bar 11 years later, we were open 5 days a week from 6 p.m. until 2 a.m. And the bar made $1.9 million a year at, I'm sure you can imagine, an incredibly better margin. We just compressed the demand. That is what we're trying to do. And what I hope you get out of today is that you need to make your money for the week this weekend. Forget about Tuesdays, at least until you've maximized your on-peak volume. And I'd like to give you some homework because you don't have enough to do in your day-to-day. I want you to take the time based on the information we covered today to review your online presence on your website, on your sales pages, on your Yelp listing. And when you think it's in a perfect state, I want you to ping me with a link. and I will review it for you. I want you to come up with one idea for an on-peak promotion that will drive sales to your shoulders when people are already out. And I want you to email me the concept so that we can workshop it together. And if you do it, I'll go through all of your websites and all of your sales pages. And we talked about software a lot today. And Yelp has an amazing team of restaurant specialists that if you're using their software, they will help you optimize these platforms for conversion. So don't hesitate to reach out to the person that you work with directly. And if you're not using the software, you should. And you can go to business.yelp.com/restaurants to learn more about it. If you like me and you like the stuff that we've covered today, you are in luck. Every month, I host a 5-day restaurant profitability masterclass where we cover this and so much more. It's free to sign up. We only have 9 spots left. It's a small group like this. So you can head to my website and sign up if it's something you would like to join. We start on Monday. And with that being said, again, like in an industry where everything is time sensitive, everything is urgent, and everything feels important, what you did today was you made an investment in yourself. And you took the time to work on your business instead of being buried in it. And what I can assure you of is the more time you spend doing things like this, the more time you will have to do things like this. The greatest hurdle in your business, the greatest obstacle to your success is you. It's your knowledge, it's your understanding, it's your worldview, it's your experience. So I would encourage you to use this as a stepping stone, if you enjoyed it, to educate yourself to the nth degree, knowing again, you are your greatest obstacle, but you are also your greatest investment. And if I can be of service to you in absolutely any way, I am incredibly accessible. So don't be afraid to hit me up or to hit up the team from Yelp for Restaurants if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. And with that, I will release you so you can go begin working on all of this stuff. Hope you guys have a wonderful week. Hit me up if you need me.